So, you making and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vergil's third Eclogue. This time it's going to be lines, I think, 32 through 37. But first, last time in Vergil's Eclogue. Here is our rubric, everything we look for as we go through the text. Well, let's get started. And this is Menalcas talking. De grege non ausim quicquam deponere tecum, est mihi namque domi pater, est in justa no verga, bisque di numerant ambo pecus, alter et haidos. Verum, id quod multo tutte ipse fate bere maius, et sanere libet quoniam tibi, pocula ponam vagina, cae latum divine opus alchimedontos. There we have that. We start with a prepositional phrase at the beginning of Menalcas' response to the wager from guy whose name I forgot. Demoitas? Yeah, I think it's Demoitas. So prepositional phrase, non is not going to be part of that. Ausim is actually a verb, an unusual verb, a vulgar, as in common verb. What this comes from is audeo, meaning to dare, so it's audeo, audere, and I think it goes straight to perfect deponent. So there's no perfect active form, there's only perfect deponent. So audeo, audere, ausus sum. And this ausim is a combination of ausus and sim, so the subjunctive ending, and the us and the extra s have just dropped out and become one. So we have a first person singular irregular. So I might, no, wouldn't that be it? No. I may not dare. I'm not really sure why this would be the perfect tense. That is unusual. So we have the possibility that the intention is action happening right now, or past tense, but with effect going into the future, which is a normal way that the perfect functions in the Greek and sometimes in the Latin. But normally it's just past action. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but we should take a look at the rest of the clause first. Quicquam comes from quisquam, I believe, and that C stands in for the D, which you would normally see in quid, the neuter form of quisquid. This is going to be the accusative with deponere, ere, a present active infinitive, taking it as its object. And I put active in the wrong place. Oh, well, so accusative, singular, and this would be neuter, and it means anything. And it's neuter because it's general action. There's nothing specified that has a linguistic gender. And then tecum is another prepositional phrase where the cum attaches to the end of the personal pronoun, very normal. So I don't actually remember the last time we've seen this, so I should probably write down accompaniment. De grege, we've got another ablative here, and this is singular masculine from grex, and it means flock or herd. I believe on the previous page we had pecus, and I was translating that as herd, so I'm going to do flock for this one. De with the ablative means either down from or concerning, and in this case it would be concerning. It's not going to be coming down from the flock with ausim. So what we have happening here is concerning the flock, I dare not. I have dared not doesn't make any sense because the bet is happening now. So I think we're going to have to take this as a perfect with present intent. Maybe the idea he's going for is an aspect rather than time, so then that would be a single event. Because if you use a present tense that has the implication of action ongoing, what I call imperfective, but in this case, perhaps he means the perfective sense. I do not dare even this once, rather than I do not dare and continue not daring each time that you ask me. because it would only happen once. Them being poor farmers, Demoitus only having the one animal. So I'm going to write all that down. Deponere, we previously did deposit with the idea of bet. I think I'm going to write both of them down. I'm probably going to have to go back to the previous page and fix that. Moving into our next clause, our next sentence, est, don't need to parse that. Mihi, dative singular, again, don't need to parse that. Namque, this is a conjunction connecting this thought with the previous thought. Nam meaning for. Domi from domus, domus, or domus, domi, depending on, well, who's using it. Since we have the I here, it could be that domi is acting as a genitive, which is what you would normally expect with that ending. Normally owning the thing before it, which namque, I think being, yeah, this is a conjunction. It can't be owned by a genitive, so then you have to go for the thing after, but that doesn't make much sense. Domi means home, and pater of home. Why would you do that? Instead, what we have here, I believe, is a locative. Domus is one of those words that is very frequent in the locative, it being a common location. Normally you have place names, city names, country names. They appear in the locative, and not much else does. Domus is one of the common nouns. That's not, one of the common nouns rather than a proper noun that takes the locative. When you have the genitive apparent ending for a locative, that's actually place where. So locative, singular, feminine, place where. And then pater is the nominative form going with our verb, nominative, singular, masculine. And in spite of this comma, this is also part of the same clause we have here. Domi, we should also assume with this. Est, there's no conjunction, that's fine. It's a statement, there is a father. There is in justa noverca. In justa noverca, both of those are feminine singular nominatives, which is backwards of how I said it. So noverca is the word for stepmother, and you know in fairy tales and such, stepmothers are almost never a good sign. Injusta means what it looks like, so unjust, unreasonable, oppressive, severe. I don't think unjust makes sense here, so what we'll probably go with is either oppress. No, oppressive doesn't work either because there is a Latin word for oppress that Menalcas could have used. So I'm going to go with unreasonable because justa and reason, or at least, not reason, that's righteous. Unreasonable or severe, I think, are our two best options. So what are this father and stepmother, not mother-in-law, for whatever reason, that's where my brain went, doing? Well, bisque, bis is twice, que is coordinated conjunction, which connects with this previous clause. Bis is going to be modifying die. Bis is neither singular nor plural, it just means twice, and it is used in time constructions, which we have with die, which is ablative, singular. And again, we come to the problem where I never remember, is it masculine or feminine for DA when it is doing a ablative of time? I don't remember. There's no indication. I'm just going to leave it as is. Bis with that. Disconnecting these two. So this is functioning as a et. Numerant, we have our verb numero, numerare. So we have a first conjugation int for third person, plural, present, active, indicative verb. It's to count. Is what it looks like. Ambo is another word like bis, where it's indeclinable adjective. I think it does have a feminine particular form, so it would be ambo, ambai, but I don't believe it has any other forms beyond that. It goes with pecus. Pecudus is an option. I believe that one is the neuter, but ambo needs a plural to modify, unlike bis, because bis is twice, ambo is both, and you have to have two for both, naturally. So instead, what I believe we have is the fourth conjugation version of pecus, and therefore, long U doesn't make much difference, but accusative plural. This final clause, alter et haidos, alter, as the green and yellow reminded me, we should just take as assuming there is another alter implied, so they together, both of them, count both flocks, and one, with the implication of or the other, also haidos, the young goats, os for accusative plural, masculine. Into line number 35 then, verum, adverb, truly. This is note the accusative version of the adverb. And we enter this initially pretty difficult for me to figure out sentence. The big problem for me was figuring out what is tute. Is it from tutus, a whole, total, or is it from something else? And it turns out that tute, sorry, skipping everything, tute comes from tueor, meaning to observe. It's deponent. This is the perfect deponent form of it, with e tells us ablative, which then molto is modifying. Id quod is, I think it's some sort of colloquialism for Latin, and I don't know what a best way to translate it. So, it which, fate bere, which we have seen before, and previously I translated it to mean admit. So, it which, to admit, ipse. It feels like there's something missing, but I think that's because I'm not giving myself enough information. I need to go through the rest of it before we can actually figure this out. Fate bere. Oh, that's what it is. Fate bere is not an infinitive. That's what's throwing me off. The ere looks like an infinitive. Instead, this is the alternate second person singular passive ending. So this is from fateor. So we've got tueor. We've got fateor, and this means to confess, to grant, to deny is another option. But second singular, this be is future tense, so the stem is actually fat. Future deponent and indicative. So you will admit, ipse intensifying you yourself, nominative singular, id quod accusative singular neuter. And then what's with molto tute? This could be functioning as an ablative absolute. We've got two ablatives there. We've got the adjective and we've got the verb / noun functioning substantially. And it would be telling us more about the rest of this sentence. Maius is accusative singular, also neuter, comes from... Why is my brain going blank here? Magnus is great. Maius is more... It's gone. Brain's completely gone. Anyway, this is the comparative form. Maius for neuter, maior for masculine or feminine. Linking this with these two. Molto tute, ablative, singular, neuter, perfect, deponent, participle. By much, observing, by seeing all this, by looking at this much, what he's about to show, you, your very own self, will admit it's better. There we go. It's from bonus. What's wrong with me? Stupid. So there's that. Be right back. So, having written that down, had a moment to think about id quod. Id quod is like quicquam. It's talking about the bet in itself. So the previous bet would be goat for some other goat, but Menalcas doesn't own any of his own. They all belong to his parents. So instead he's offering a better bet from his end. Then we get into this next clause, explaining part of what he's saying here and what he will say after. In sanire, there we have a actual infinitive, so present, active, infinitive. Libet is a impersonal verb, so it is possible for it to appear the other person's first or second. I'm not as familiar with this one, like licet, L-I-C-E-T, is one I'm more used to seeing, and I think I have seen that as a second person, which was strange in itself. But this one means it is pleasing. It's probably a word in English that comes from it. Et is not the future tense. Since these don't conjugate normally, I don't know if we have an infinitive that pops up very often. But this is just a simple third, singular, present, active, indicative, and as I said, impersonal, so I'm going to have to write this tiny here. And then quoniam, since, is the idea there. Just like quia is another word that we could use instead of this. And then tibi, no need to parse that. But then how do we put this all together? I believe the first one you need to put is quoniam, so since, and then libet next is pleasing to you, to be insane, as it looks like. Then we get into what his actual bet is. Pocula ponam, vagina. Ponam here is our verb, pono ponere. With that third conjugation, the A, we have either a first-person singular future tense or the first-person singular subjunctive, still in the present. We don't need a subjunctive because he's talking about a reality. And he was saying previously, future tense here, so it should follow with another future tense. And the contest hasn't happened yet, so I don't think hypothetical is necessary at all. He is actually setting this down. So first person singular, future, though I will write the other option up to place, and then poculu as the direct object, accusative, plural, neuter, so poculum, poculi. This is a type of drinking vessel. I don't know if it is of the Persian design. Sorry, I didn't have time to look that up. But then what is the material? Well, here we have vagina, that A modifying pocula, so be matching it, accusative, singular, neuter. And what does this mean? Well, it means of beechwood. However, if we go back to ausim, and then just the kind of jumbled form that a lot of what he's saying is in, so verb, start, dative, conjunction all the way over there, verb, it's all out of wonk. Like there should really be something else going on in a lot of these sentences. But what the green and yellow suggest, the Cambridge suggests, is that this is an archaic way of speaking. I've already got an archaic word, so why not use archaic words in English as well? So then, pocula, I'm going to call goblets. Because, great word. But what type of goblets? Beechen goblets. That's fun. Moving on into the next clause, kailatum. This is kailo. Yeah, kailo. Are. So it's a first. And it means to engrave, to carve. And as you can see from the TUM, we have the perfect passive participle form. This is not a deponent for once. What is it modifying? Well, opus right there, accusative singular neuter, which makes sense. Is this nominative or is this accusative? Well, it's singular, so it doesn't actually match pocula, which makes sense because opus is the work that is on the bowls. So I think this is, it's not an accusative of exclamation because they're not shouting it out. Maybe what we should assume here is an unspoken est. So he's making a declarative statement. If he put the est in there, then we'd be tempted to take this as the perfect passive indicative. So no, I think we should just assume est, and this is another declarative statement with opus as the nominative. So, and Dewini and alkimedontos, sorry, I'll try to end this video quickly. Dewini is genitive, singular, masculine, modifying. Alkimedontos with that os is a Greek genitive, singular, masculine. There is a variant reading where this is is, which would just be the Latin, because alkimedon, the stem is actually on that in with a long O. I'm going to write down the translation of this, then I'm going to get to what alkimedontos might mean. It is purely a guess. I looked up a few words, I'll explain, and then we'll tie this all off. So Menalcas is not done speaking, but we'll get to that later. I also went with the archaic carven rather than carved. The possibilities for what alkimedon could come from might be an origin from alkimos, but then I couldn't find any delta word to go with on the end of alkimod, alkimo. So it could be alkimodo, like from didomi, a archaic form of that. So alkimos means like stout or brave. So stout, brave, giver. It's possible. I doubt it. So that would be that. The more likely option, which is still a guess, so don't take this with any authority at all, is that he comes from the two words combined, alki, which is interesting in itself, and medos, which is from medo, more specifically, sorry, this is dragging on, medon. So, what do all these things mean? Alki is related, of course, to alkemos, meaning strength, and medos, medon being the present active participle, is ruler. So the strength of the ruler or the strong ruler is what alkemedon might mean. So with the present active participle ending, the reason I will go for that is because in the Latin, the way that this should decline is it should be alkemedon tis for the genitive singular, using Latin in as os as we find it here, whereas in Greek it would be alkemedontos, omicron sigma genitive. So there we have it. Let's take a look at it in its own context, and then I will bid you farewell. Concerning flock, I dare not wager bet anything with you, for there is to me at home father, there is this unreasonable stepmother, and twice a day they count both herds, one or other also young goats. Truly, it which, by much observing, you yourself will admit is better, since it is pleasing to you to be insane, I will wager beechen goblets, carven work of divine alkemedon. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have a very good week, and wale.